I'm going to get into it. What do you think, Amber? Give me the cue. All right, we got the cue. So, good morning, everybody. So we have a fancy little setup here with a couple different camera views for you all. I have a TV right behind me so I can see everybody on the screen. So if you happen to be like, who's she looking at? That's really what I'm looking at, is all of you who have joined us today for Colorado Gives Day. And thank you so much, because we're going to take this opportunity to share with you some of our favorite school food recipes, teach you a couple culinary skills, and then spend some time with our incredible panelists learning about values-based procurement. So I'm Chef Jess, and I'm very excited to introduce our new culinary specialist, Chef Taylor. Come on in for a quick second and say hi.
Hi,
There he
everybody.
is.
Super excited.
All right, so we're very happy to be here. And when it comes to what Chef Taylor and I do at Nourish Colorado, is we are very focused on supporting healthy food in our institutions with a primary focus on K-12 and early care. And so institutions like these are filled with incredibly hardworking people who want to feed their customers the best possible meal that they can. And in so many cases, they make this happen with very little funding, resources, support, or recognition. And our institutions, they play a critical role when it comes to creating a true values-based food chain. And we support these efforts with a focus on policy, culinary training, and a mix of technical assistance. And one cornerstone is our local procurement regional workshops. And those bring together as many of the players involved in our food system as possible. And they really work to help create, strengthen connections, identify resources, reinforce their value and their expertise, all while enhancing their skills and giving them opportunities to network and develop action plans that fit into their realities. And we're actually launching our Low Pro Co workshop series down in Southeast Colorado on January 28th. So if you know people in those regions, do let them know that we are coming to them on January 28th. And this is a great opportunity to mention our Colorado Gives Day campaign and how you can support. So we're looking to reach 10K today. We're actually almost halfway there. We're already above $5,000. So woo, that's super amazing. And reaching our goal would support us in executing a regional local procurement workshop, helping to make farm to institution the norm in our communities. Also, we have a fun giveaway for those of you who are participating. You're going to get to receive one of my favorite cookbooks. This is amazing. It's all about the techniques behind making the recipes as delicious as you possibly can. And one of my favorite kitchen tools. This is called a bench scraper. And I use this all the time. You'll get to see me use this today when we do our knife skills demo. So now that I mentioned a kitchen tool, I think it's time to get cooking. So the way this is going to work, first, I'm going to share a time management concept that we teach all the time during our culinary trainings. After that, I'm going to take some time and we're going to put together the frittata and let it cook, because my hope is that we can get this finished before our culinary session is done. Then I'm going to show you how to dice an onion. And for those of you who are cooking along with me, we'll be using that time for you to put your frittata into the oven and finish that up. Then Chef Taylor is going to have his debut, and he's going to show you a cool way to use one of our favorite cornbread recipes. I'm not going to tell you what he's going to show you because this is a teaser, and it honestly blew my mind, and I can't wait for you all to see this happen. And then it's time to eat. So are you all ready? Shall we get to it? Looking for some people? All right, I see some thumbs up. All right, so let me get my cameras up and ready to go for you all. Because first, we're going to talk about Mise-En-Place. And I kind of like to say this as like Mise-En-Place. This is a French term that is used all the time in culinary kitchens, really any type of food service operation. And anytime you make a recipe, you have two main choices. You can gather your ingredients and prep them as you go, or you can gather everything you need first and then make the recipe. And so if you choose that first option, most likely you're reading your recipe and you go to your fridge, you grab some onions and you come over and you chop them up real fast. And then you look for your next ingredient. You go to the fridge, you grab some zucchini. Maybe things burn sometimes. Maybe you forget something. we really want to promote that second option. And this is this concept of mise-en-place, which effectively means everything in its place. Chefs, we love this concept. And most of us use it every single day, even in our home lives as well. And if you're really looking to enhance your culinary skills, I highly recommend you try this technique at home. I also guarantee that most of you listening have actually used this concept before. So if you're staging your coffee maker the night before, so all you have to do is push a button in the morning, that's mise-en-place. If you lay out your clothes the day before, so when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to decide what to wear, that's mise-en-place. So you actually are already doing this if you're practicing any of those techniques. So in the kitchen, here's how it looks. We do have doggies, so there might be barking. We'll try to keep them calm. So mise-en-place looks like this. And if you are seeing a bunch of little kind of like Brady Bunch boxes on your screen and you want to only see me, you need to just choose speaker view so that that's what's coming up. And that's what I'm doing for myself so I can make sure things aren't blurry. So chefs have two types of mise-en-place. Right here, this would be called specific mise-en-place. Let me get it to where it's not blurry. So my onions, my zucchini, these are all already cut, roasted, ready to go. My eggs, I've cracked them, I've whisked them up, they're ready to go. My cheese, shredded. I'm actually gonna add some mushrooms into my frittata because I had those available. And I've got my salt and my pepper, just be sprinkling those in. If you're in a school kitchen, you always measure, but at home you have a little bit more flexibility. So this would be considered specific mise-en-place. Everything is ready for me, so all I have to do is mix, mix, mix. The other type of mise-en-place that we see is something called general mise-en-place. So I have my eggs, they're not cracked, my zucchini, I still need to slice it, and I have my onion, my block of cheese that I would need to shred, and if I wanted to use some mushrooms, I would have those in as well. So the great thing about mise-en-place is that when you do this, not much gets forgotten because everything is here that you need, and it really prevents any kind of burning as well. So let's get to our recipe and show you how to make this frittata. And so remember, if you're cooking along, I'm going to show you first, then we're going to dice our onion, and I'll show you that whole process as well for getting your frittata in the pan, because the best thing about this frittata is that it's really pretty flexible. And if you've never made a frittata before at home, it's basically like a crustless quiche is really all it is. So it's really flexible, really easy recipe, and you have a lot of variations that you can play when it comes to the vegetables. We love this recipe in schools because it's an excellent way to bring in some fresh vegetables, and it's a really great way to use local products like zucchini, onions, mushrooms. You can even find local eggs if you're using that in your school district. We don't see that as frequently, but there's lots of ways that you can really change this recipe, add different vegetables to it. Sometimes I like to add roasted potatoes to mine if I have some of those left over. I'll even slice some fresh tomatoes, throw those into my frittata. Sometimes some chopped greens like a kale is really delicious in there. And then if I'm really feeling crazy, I'll do something like a breakfast sausage or a chorizo. Lots of options with this dish. Really one of my favorites, and I tend to do this quite frequently, at least once a week. I'm making some sort of a play on a frittata. So let me get my mise-en-place here and I'll show you how it all comes together. Let's see if I did this right. Okay, so this is as simple as you need to make it. I've got my little pan here. You can also use a saute pan, which we'll talk about these onions in a second. If you have a bigger baking dish, this works too. Schools will most likely be using hotel pans to make these. And what I did to get my zucchini and my onions where it is I actually just roasted them. So I laid them out on a sheet pan, just like this. I used a larger one, drizzled a little bit of oil over everything, added some salt and pepper, and then just gave it a quick little toss and threw it into a I don't know, 400-degree oven, 375-degree oven. You all know your ovens. So sometimes they run hot, sometimes they run cold. But this is all I did for my frittata. So you can pre-roast your vegetables, throw those in and call that good. Or you can start off with vegetables and you can saute them and then make it all in one dish as well. And so with these, wanted to quickly highlight two variations because people are always asking me, what's the difference between a sweat and a saute? This is a sweat, no color on the vegetable. So I have my pan, I add some oil, I get it nice and hot, and then I add my vegetables and I just give them a good little saute. No color. That is what it means when a recipe says sweat. If your recipe says saute, you're looking to get a little bit of color in there. So same thing, pan, get it nice and hot, add some oil, and then you add your vegetables, and then you want that little bit of browning in there as well. So the way this works, I'm just gonna go, add some vegetables. Since I'm adding a little bit of mushrooms to this, I'm gonna kind of play with my ratios. These just go right into your pan, just like this, super easy. I take my eggs, already whisked. I'm gonna add my cheese into it. You can do extra cheese, any type of cheese you want. Mozzarella, Gruyere is delicious. I know last year for Colorado Kids Day, we did manchego and introduced you all to that amazing, delicious cheese. So that works as well. I'm a big cheddar fan, so I love to use a good sharp cheddar in this. Here's my frittata. Beautiful. I'll put it right up here. And I have my oven set at 375. You can do 350. I wouldn't go much higher than 375. This is going to go in, cook, I don't know, for about 30 minutes. We'll see what happens. We'll keep our eyes on it. And that is my frittata. So you all came here for knife skills. So I'm going to show you how to dice an onion, because most people, when it comes to dicing an onion, it gets really messy. And chefs, we are just a little bit particular about cleanliness and being organized. And so this technique for dicing an onion is going to hopefully change your world, because it is amazing. And I'm gonna make sure I adjust my view so you can see this happen. Got my bench scraper and I have my station all set up. So here we go. Make sure it's not blurry for you all. All right, cutting board, always put something underneath it so that it does not move all around your table and you're not chasing it. We use like little slip mats. Just a damp paper towel works just as fine. For dicing an onion, the way this works, you've got your onion. Onions grow like this out of the ground. This is where like the green would come if you leave it too long. When you dice an onion, we're going to leave this on. And this is what we like to call the hairy belly button. So I'm going to chop off the top because it's rolling. All right, so I need to give myself a nice stable surface. So I take the top off. And then once I have the top, I do a bit of a tunnel. Okay, so my knife goes, my hand goes, bam. Now my onion's in half. It is much easier to peel an onion when it is cut in half versus trying to peel your onion when it is whole. And sometimes the onion doesn't want to peel very easily, but this should work just fine. And because we're chefs, I like to use my bench scraper and get all of these extra little pieces off. Now, onions have grow lines. And so there's these little tiny lines that I'm going to use as my guide. And I'm kind of doing an imaginary line and I'm not cutting past this because I'm going to keep my onions all together. And so first I need to make some slits and I'm following the curvature of the onion. So I'm going to go here. The size of my slits that I'm making are going to determine the size of the dice that I get. And you can see when it comes to the second part, I kind of move my hand over this. Look at that. It is all still together. And I'm doing for like a bit of a medium dice, okay? Nothing too crazy. If I went more narrow, I would get my super small dice. And then here we go. You ready for the magic? I'm gonna do my claw. Always imagine that your mama bear. Do a claw. That's how you protect this hand. If I see fingers like this is too close, it's dangerous. So here we go. Gonna dice my onion. Look at that. Ooh. Oh, at least that's what I say every time I dice my onion. And all of this is still edible. So I just make a few more notches and then bloop, bloop, bloop. Always make those sound effects. It makes the food taste better. And those are my diced onions for you all. Amazing, awesome, delicious. Now I'm going to turn it over to Chef Taylor for his cornbread. We're going to do our quick little transition with me making some fake intermission transition music. Transition.
Nice.
I got you.
Thank you. Hi, like just said, I'm Chef Taylor. I'm the new culinary specialist for Nourish. I'm super excited to be here. We're going to take a favorite recipe at Nourish, their cornbread recipe, and turn it into something really cool called Johnny Cakes. It's essentially a cornbread pancake. It is delicious. Things. Okay, first thing we're going to do is take all of our dry ingredients. Same as Jess, I have everything, all of my ingredients measured out, ready to go. Got a cup and a half of all-purpose flour, cup and a half of cornbread, a tablespoon and a teaspoon of baking powder, and a third of a cup of sugar. And we're just going to take our dry ingredients. Oh, add a little bit of salt too. We're going to take our dry ingredients, mix them up pretty good, really quick. All right, then I have all my wet ingredients all laid out, ready to go. You've got 2 cups of milk, 2 whole eggs, and about half a pound of shredded cheese. We're using cheddar. There's a little bit less than half a pound because I've been snacking, and it is delicious. We're gonna go ahead and mix up all of our wet ingredients first. Okay, and at this stage, you can add super fun things to it. We're gonna add just some canned green chilies to it. So we're gonna have cheddar green chili Johnny Cakes. Sounds delicious. You can add bacon or corn or ham or breakfast sausage, anything like that. Make them super delicious. Okay. All of our ingredients are mixed up. We're gonna do the well method. Make a well in our dry ingredients here. Okay. Pour our wet ingredients into the bowl. Perfect. We'll take our spatula, and we don't want to overmix this. We want it to be a little chunky, still smooth. It's going to look really chunky with the cheese and the green chilies. Jess is going to go ahead and hand me my little griddle. Just out of your way. Okay, and my batter's a little thick. We're looking for a pancake batter consistency. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more milk. After I mix it up, a little bit more milk. I got it.
He's like, get out of here. This is my debut.
Thanks, Jess. A little bit more milk. Add it to our batter. Beautiful. There we go. Okay. Awesome, awesome. Got a nice medium-high griddle here. Same rules for pancakes. Medium-high, we'll plop them down, and then we're going to look for little bubbles for us to turn them. A little bit of butter in the pan. Nice. Okay. I did try this recipe with a vegan egg substitute and oat milk, and it came out really, really good too. So if you want to try vegan options, it'll absolutely work. Oh, hey, look, some just eggs. I'll turn this up a little bit. Okay. Right on the buttered griddle. Beautiful. Ooh. This is super fun. I love cornbread, and why not have cornbread for breakfast? Awesome. Yeah, I tried this with bacon. I tried this with jalapeno peppers. It all came out really, really good. Okay, a couple of minutes each side, about 3 or 4 minutes each side, and we're still going to look for these little bubbles over here. Looks like my pan was a little cold. I'm going to turn him up a little bit.
And then someone asked for vegan amounts. Do you use the same amount?
Yeah, for vegan amounts, we're going to use the same amounts. Whatever the conversion is for 2 eggs, I think it's about 1/3 of a cup of vegan egg substitute. And then same for oat milk. Almond milk would work too. Just make sure it's unflavored, because that'll give it kind of a funky aftertaste. And I actually did use a vegan cheddar cheese, and that came out really good too. Thanks, Amber. Okay. Look at that.
About a minute. Maybe we give our frittata a check while those are
Let's
cooking.
go ahead and see if that's ready to go.
40 minutes. Let's see where we are on the frittata. We're trying to, the lighting's always a fun one to figure out. Yeah, frittata's still cooking. It's taking its time, as we expected.
And now we lost the video.
They're okay. Get us hooked up.
There we go.
Yeah, our video just decided to stop working. Of course, that's how that would go. Let's try this one more time.
Don't worry, I'll wait to flip them.
Let's just do this. Try that.
There we go.
There.
Awesome. Looks like these are about ready to flip. I'm seeing a little bit of air bubbles around the outside of them. That's what we're looking for. Awesome. Look at how fluffy those are. Those look delicious. Very good.
Goodness.
They go really, really, really good with honey, just like cornbread, but you can also put syrup on them. We have a little bit of both, so we're gonna practice a couple things. I'm gonna have Chef Jess come in and see how the frittatas are doing.
Frittata's taking its time. It's
Taking
cooking.
its time.
It's like a 30-minute kind of process for a frittata. They're
Okay.
delicious. Maybe we can interrupt the panel with a little commercial interruption.
Go up a little bit. These are
All right.
beautiful. You can see the cheese kind of melting around them too. I love putting savory ingredients in with my sweet breakfast. I love sweet and savory, sweet and salty. It's so delicious. I should have gotten some bacon.
I would love some bacon.
There we go. Nice and golden brown on either side. Here we go. I'll just pop them on the plate. Ooh, here we go. Yeah, it smells so good in here. I'm gonna have a great breakfast. We'll pop them on the plate. We'll pat of butter across the top of them. We'll take our honey. We warmed it up in a mason jar a little bit. Get a nice glob of honey there. Awesome. Honey cornbread pancakes for breakfast. Why not? Here we go.
They are absolutely delicious,
Man.
I have to say.
Spread my butter around.
So we've got a short stack right there. We'll even go zoom up on the camera. Be like,
Yeah, here we go.
"Oh."
That came out really good.
Yeah.
I'm a honey fiend. So, oh, this is local honey too from Rocky Ford that we got when we were visiting southeastern Colorado a little bit ago. Awesome.
Nice. Well, thank you, Taylor, for that. I'll do a
Got it.
quick look in our final few minutes, see how this frittata. I'll show you all so you can tell that this sucker is not ready. Because again, it's only been cooking for about 10 minutes, really. And so you can see, when I pull it over, it's still liquid. So it's obviously not ready. It's starting to set in the middle. It's probably gonna need about another 15 minutes in the oven and then it'll be ready and extra delicious. And just like Taylor mentioned, we will be testing this recipe with that vegan egg product that we found to see if you can actually make a frittata using those just eggs. So we'll see what happens, provide an update, but you can always leave the cheese out if you're at least vegan, we'll figure it out. If you are dairy free, you can leave the cheese out. So this is our Colorado Kids Day cooking demo. I feel like we are right on time. So remember, if you are excited and you want to support this work and help more schools and institutions do amazing, delicious local products, homemade, scratch-made recipes, maybe we've seen schools making pancakes from scratch. So why not actually make Johnny cakes? And again, venture to the South for a change and try something really delicious, because I love that sweet savory combination with that green chili and the cheddar in those Johnny cakes as well. So if you are looking to donate, go hashtag CoGives, Nourish Colorado, Nourish Co, C-O, and then you can tell that Wendy has also added into the chat box the website where you can find that too. Thank you all so much. And in order to enter the giveaway, because again, we've got our prizes, we're gonna want to see you all to type into the chat box, what was one culinary trick that you learned today, that you're either, you learned it or you're gonna apply it at home. So type that into the chat box. It'll enter you into the giveaway. If you cooked along with us, and we can see some of you are on your computers cooking along, you're gonna get 2 giveaway tickets. And for those of you who just happen to join us, you're gonna get 1. So everybody has a chance to win. And again, if I could ever meet Mr. Lopez Alt, that would be amazing, because he is an absolute genius and always doing the amazing kind of food techniques, best potato salad ever, best chili ever. This is a great book. Yeah, Kenji, see, people know, Kenji knows what's up. And the bench scraper, I use this when I'm baking, when I'm making cinnamon rolls, and anytime I'm cutting, it's the easiest tool versus using your knives. So thank you so much for joining us. We are very happy to have you all here. And yeah, frittata is still cooking. So we're gonna let that finish up, and we're gonna eat and enjoy while our panelists come on, and you get to learn about some values-based procurement and ways that we can really, truly make this work for everybody involved in our food system. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Chef Jess and Chef Taylor. That was such a great way to start the day. I think I'll definitely be making a frittata tomorrow. My name is Julia Glennon, and I'm going to be moderating the discussion here today. Before we get to our panel, I do have a few things to share with you all. So a little about me. I have worked in and around food for over a decade, and I'm just finishing up my master's degree at CU Boulder in the Masters of the Environment program, studying sustainable food systems. As part of that program, I've spent the past year working with an organization called the Center for Good Food Purchasing. And this is a national nonprofit working to transform institutional food procurement across the country. This experience really opened my eyes to the many laws and policies that affect the procurement process, and introduced me to some of the barriers and opportunities for values-based food procurement. So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to give a quick demo of one of the tools that my team produced for that project, which has some additional resources for those of you who are interested in learning more, as well as some ideas for ways to get involved. I do also have a couple quick housekeeping items. If everyone could keep themselves on mute during the panel discussion, that would be great. And we do have plenty of time for Q&A with our speakers at the end. And you're welcome to use the chat and throw your questions in there anytime, and we'll collect those and get to them at the end, or you're also welcome to wait and raise your hand once we get to that point. So I know that some of you are already involved with public procurement in different capacities, and some of you may be new to this topic. So before we jump into the panel, I'm going to briefly go over some of the basics of public food procurement and why it's such an important leverage point for food systems change. Actually, one of my colleagues from grad school is also on this call today, and he's going to help me out and share a screen. I just have a couple slides. Great. Thank you so much, Jack. Right. Can we do a present mode?
I don't have a present option, which is very strange. I saw that like just a couple seconds before you threw it to me. Is this adequate? I could zoom in just a little more.
Yeah.
Well, that's not super ideal.
It looks
Yeah,
pretty
that's
good.
great.
You can maximize your screen,
think-
but it looks pretty good, Jack.
I think that looks good. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, there.
Appreciate
Is,
it.
is
Oh,
that
perfect.
better?
There we
Okay,
go.
cool. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you so much for your help. All right. So what do we mean when we talk about values-based procurement? Many institutions receive government funding, and this includes schools, hospitals, and correctional facilities, but also some other institutions such as municipal agencies. This can include sheriff's departments, parks departments, aging services, early childhood education. There's a lot of different institutions that buy food. And when we add up all of their budgets, it ends up being a lot of money. So combined, institutions across the US are spending $120 billion a year on food. And historically, institutions have been required to award contracts to whoever has the lowest cost bid. But we know that the cost of food does not include many social and environmental externalities. A recent report from the Rockefeller Center showed that when we account for all of the impacts to the environment and human health, the true cost of food is actually 3 times what we're currently paying for it. So shifting some of those public dollars to food that prioritizes the well-being of people, animals, and the environment, we can start to account for some of that true cost of food and create a more equitable and sustainable food system. Shifting to values-based procurement also means that we need to understand the relationships between food distributors, vendors, and their suppliers, and increase transparency along the entire food supply chain. Public institutions often serve low-income populations and people that may not have access to nutritious food. This is especially true in situations where the resident populations are receiving 100% of their meals on site. So this is the case in correctional facilities and some aging centers. Switching to values-based procurement affects everyone in the communities, local producers and those consuming food. The organization that I and some of the others here have been working with, the Center for Good Food Purchasing, next slide. Is they have a dual purpose. So they work both with coalition groups on policy advocacy, and they also work directly with institutions to overcome some of the barriers and increase their institutional spend on values-based food. They do this through the Good Food Purchasing Program, which offers institutions a metric-based flexible framework to help redirect those food budgets towards sustainable suppliers and those that adhere to fair labor practices. And by doing so, they can provide a basis for that transparency and accountability. They're currently working with over 60 institutions in 24 major cities across the country since they started in 2015. And they're currently working with around $1 billion in public dollars. Next slide. So at the heart of this program is a rating system that's based on these 5 core value categories. So the first is local economies, and the local economies value category really aims to support diverse, family and cooperatively owned, as well as small and sort of mid-size agriculture and food businesses that are within the local or regional area. The second category, valued workforce, ensures that food suppliers are respecting workers' rights to freedom of association and to bargain collectively for better wages and working conditions. The third category, animal welfare, ensures that animal products are sourced from producers that provide healthy and humane conditions. Nutrition promotes health and well-being by focusing on vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and minimally processed foods. And also, this category really focuses on improving equity overall and affordability and accessibility of high quality and culturally relevant foods for all communities. And finally, we have the environmental sustainability category. And so that value aims to source from producers that are reducing or eliminating synthetic pesticides and fertilizers and practicing sustainable and regenerative practices on their farms, and those that are also reducing menu items that have high carbon and water footprint. So values-based procurement has been gaining a lot of momentum around the country recently. A number of cities have passed good food purchasing policies, including LA, Boston, recently New York City, which previously had some of the most restrictive policies. So it's pretty exciting that local governments are starting to realize the immense benefits to their communities that they'll be able to see by switching to a values-based system, and are providing some support to make sure that that happens. All right, that's the little background there. We can stop screen sharing. Thank you so much, Jack. And now I would love to introduce our speakers. We have an incredible group of people here today who are all doing this really important work right here in the Front Range. First, we have Catherine Ardwan, and Catherine is the value chain coordinator at East Denver Food Hub. Next, we have Chef Patrick Hartnett, and Patrick is the director of food and beverage at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And last but not least, we have Marion Kelb here with us today. Marion is the institutional food program administrator for the city and county of Denver. Thank you all so much for being here. For our first question, I'd love if you could all tell us where you're located, your role, why you're doing this work, and also how you interact with values-based procurement on a day-to-day basis. And let's start with Patrick. Oh, I think you're muted. There we go.
It's that double screen thing on a single screen. It's impossible.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, my name is Patrick Hartnett. I'm of course, the food and beverage director at the Museum of Nature and Science. And I direct the purchasing dollars for the museum's food budget to value-based procurement. A, because it's good for the bottom line. And B, we're the Nature and Science Museum. We need to take care of not only the environment, but the community, the animals, and everything that is encompassed in the 5 pillars of the GFPP. We started this job working with the GFPP right before the pandemic started. Like Marion and I were in New Orleans in mid-March, right when the country shut down. It was lots of fun. But we learned a lot there from the museum standpoint, and we soon got our baseline back from the center, And that just opened our eyes to what exactly we were doing. Everything before that was unclear, but once you get the document, the baseline back, it just makes what you're doing a lot clearer, and you know that your money is going to the right place.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Catherine, can you go next?
Yeah, hi, good morning. So glad to be here and thank you all for setting this up. I'm Catherine Ardwan with the East Denver Food Hub. We're located in a 15,000 square foot warehouse in Montbello, but we serve primarily the Denver metro area, including Jeffco and largely the Front Range. But we work as a hub to connect farmers across the state and the region to really build out not just the supply chain, but the value chain. So really incorporating all of the 5 pillars of the GFPP into the decisions we make about procurement and the partners that we aim to work with. We're a fairly new company, just over 1.5 years old, and I've been with East Denver Food Hub for the majority of that. So real glad to be here representing our organization. And yeah, just as I kind of mentioned, my work as a value chain coordinator is a lot of sort of the on the ground logistics, really working with the procurement from our farmers and producers, and networking with values aligned customers as well, and other customers who, you know, want access to fresh food, whether it's local or not. We aim to move the conversation forward and change the norms around, you know, why it's really important to support our local economy and planet, and the workers doing the good work of growing our food. Thanks for letting me be here.
Great, thank you so much. Marion?
Hi, everybody. Good morning, and big thanks to our chefs today who did just such an excellent job of teaching us how to cook. And what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about the kind of the race to the bottom with low price bidding. But first, I'll introduce myself. I'm Marion Kelb, and I work with the City of Denver in the public health and the environment. I manage the Good Food Purchasing Program for the city. A lot of the purchasing that happens in the city is based on low price bidding, where institutions have to take the lowest price for the products that they are looking for. And, you know, in many ways, I think this is a race to the bottom. And while we always want to spend our tax dollars wisely as the city with our public dollars, why shouldn't we be rewarding food companies that respect the environment, treat their workers well, and provide a nutritious product? And these values align with those of the cities as well. And so it makes sense for us to do that. And by paying the lowest price for food, what we sometimes do is invest in air and water pollution, poverty wages, and the mistreatment of animals. What values-based purchasing allows the city to do is to really put its money where its mouth is. You know, if it says it cares about the environment, let's show it through its purchasing. And I will just say that the values that Julia talked about earlier, the 5 values of GFPP, the city has also added racial equity to that. And so that is something that that we're concerned about and looking at in bid solicitations as well. So what really attracts me to this work is the fact that it connects the dots. It connects the dots between food and labor, food and the environment, food and farming practices, food and the local economy. It's all connected. And that's really why I'm interested in values-based procurement. I think that with values-based purchasing, we can begin looking at spending dollars on products that reflect how we want the world to look.
Great, thank you so much, Marion. And thanks for expanding on that, the importance of the low cost bidder and the implications of that. So for this next question, would be really great to hear an example of a success you've had, as well as a challenge that you faced in the past or a challenge you're currently facing that's related to this work. Catherine, can we start with you?
Yeah, so I'd like to talk a little bit about how East Denver Food Hub kind of came to be. We're co-founded by two guys who also run Emerald Gardens, a farm out in Bennett. So Roberto Mesa and David Demerling have been running their farm for several years. And when COVID hit, lost over 60% of their customers who are primarily restaurants and some grocery stores. And so in order to save their farm, really had to pivot to an addition, like a larger procurement model of working with other farms who may also be struggling to seek access to markets. And so they created East Denver Food Hub as a response to the pandemic and all of the challenges that brought, and sort of used that huge challenge as an opportunity. But it's only successful because we take an ecosystems approach. It's not just about growing food or selling food. We're really working on leveraging the opportunities of policy, specifically with GFPP. Roberto and I both sit on the Sustainable Food Policy Council at the city, and really try to leverage our networks there and with partners that we've built to collectively support our local businesses and our local farmers and producers, and sort of see that as an opportunity. And it's not easy to start a business in a pandemic. And so that's certainly come with a larger set of challenges. We sort of started out with really focusing on food access organizations who were receiving an incredible amount of funding related to COVID relief, and the state of Colorado has an ongoing food pantry assistance grant. And some of the challenges around that are seasonality. Many of those funding dollars are specifically released in off season. So we have a grant that runs November through June, which is a really hard time to capture all of the amazing support we could be offering our local producers. But we see that also as an opportunity to widen our networks, to work with, to seek out additional values aligned producers, maybe a little bit further outside of our immediate neighborhoods. So we work with some neighboring states, other food hubs, and also like storage crops to really make sure that we can keep the sustainability and viability of our producers lasting through the season. And, I think the main thing I want to hit on with that is we recognize that food insecurity in our city, in our state, throughout the country is an emergency, and that's something we want to address while looking to these long-term solutions, like working with institutions with their huge food budgets to consider what the long-term solutions are, so we have fewer people relying on that charitable food system overall, and measure success by how strong our economies are, and not how many pounds of food we're giving away.
Great, thank you so much. I think East Denver Food Hub has really been such an inspiring story coming out of the pandemic. Thank you for giving us a little bit of the background. Patrick, can you go next?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Coming from a nonprofit museum, we are one of the only museums at least in the city, that is self-run. So usually there's a third-party food service establishment that runs most of the other SCFDs or cultural outlets. So we had the opportunity to be involved with this without much string pulling from anywhere else. And one of our biggest successes was workforce value, the valued workforce, I'm saying. And so we spent $129,000 or 15% of our money on valued workforce companies that take the workforce not for granted, but for the tools and the great resources they are. So We of course buy from East End plus Valley Roots plus Altius Farms, Rock Rivers, and we're also going to start purchasing from a winery, Seven Cellars, who gives $1 back for every bottle of wine to the the Food Bank of the Rockies. So some of the other things that we've done, not only workforce successes, but our environmental sustainability. We started composting back before we joined the GFPP, and our first year we composted 50 tons of material out of the cafe and deli. We went completely plastic free. We're the only outlet that Coke sells to that delivers Dasani water in cans. They have to get it from Arizona to bring it to us. So people are always confused when they see a can of water. I've never seen this before. And then some of the challenges we have is the transparency of our broadliners, Cisco, Shamrock. A lot of the times they can't even tell you where the product is being produced, county, city. So that has been a little bit of a stumbling block for us, but we've taken the information we have gotten from GFPP and used it as a tool to leverage with these companies what we can get. And I think just it gets better and better each month as we put pressure on these companies to do better.
Great, thank you so much, Patrick. I didn't know about the wine. This is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Marion.
Great, thanks so much for that, Patrick. I just want to double down on that point that, Patrick was able to get Coca-Cola to change the product for them. So, think about that. That's actually pretty big. And that's what GFPP is really about. It's working with these companies to produce a change in what they do. With GFPP within the city, I'm working with 2 different agencies internally, the Office of Children's Affairs and the Denver Sheriff's Department. And when I initially approached the Denver Sheriff's Department and explained the program, the deputy chief that I spoke to was very impressed with the GFPP. His views were that they were trying to release inmates back into the community in better shape than when they came into the jail. So he was very much in favor of providing healthy, nutritious food to inmates. However, there was a change in personnel, as often happens in institutions, and a new person that was assigned for the point person to be for this work was very concerned about the cost of the program. And I explained a number of times that the program was based on incremental change, that there were many paths to choose from, and it didn't necessarily mean needing to pay more for food. But the staff person, it was clear that they didn't believe me, because the comments that we had, were things like he was adamant that the inmates not be served organic food, and that came up multiple times. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of neutralize all of this. And while these discussions were going on, the Sheriff's Department decided to hire a food service management company. Patrick was saying that they do all of their own meal prep, and the prison decided to go with a food service management firm. And I was asked to be part of the interview panel for this, and I had a chance to review the proposals that were submitted. And as part of this process, I was also able to make suggestions around how GFPP could be incorporated into the final contract, which ended up being with Aramark. And one of the goals that I suggested was that they include in there that by 2030, the jails would be purchasing 25% local product. And I was also able to present different goals for all of the value areas. And all of these suggestions ended up being part of the final contract with Aramark. And needless to say, the word organic was nowhere to be found. But what that says to me is that, written contracts are always really sort of paramount and important. But in this case, the reason that it was important is that it really laid out what the ultimate responsibility was going to be for the Sheriff's Department and Aramark. And when the staff person was able to see this in writing, all of a sudden the program became less intimidating. And I think that this is really key when we work with institutions and agencies that may not be sold on GFPP because of the values, but they can see a way forward to implement the program in a way that works for them. And I think that's something that we really need to strive to do, is try to work with those agencies that don't necessarily simply endorse the program, but find ways to integrate it. And I think then become a champion from the program because of that.
Great, thank you so much. For the next question, I'm gonna switch gears a little. I have some individual questions for each of you that are more specific to your unique roles. So I'm gonna start with Patrick. And Patrick, you mentioned earlier that you've been focusing on the valued workforce category, and I know that during the process of working with GFPP, you've had to make some changes to the vendors that you're purchasing from. Could you talk a little bit more about that process?
Yeah, it's one of the better things, I guess you would say, coming out of the pandemic shutdown. I got a lot more time to really dive into who we purchase from and what they're doing with their workforce and the like. So we found that I think Marion brought it to our attention. It was in the public eye as well, with JBS was having some very difficult times in mistreating their staff. Lots of COVID cases came down, and then we found out that there was no protection, no PPP or no PPE. So it was pretty easy there to just say, okay, well, JBS, we don't buy from you anymore. We sent them a letter to try to get them to change their ways, with little response. I don't think there was any response. Marion, do you?
No.
So that was one. Carry Foods, who at the time, since we were pretty much, on a baseline level of products we were serving, our coffee shop was open, and we were using Da Vinci syrups in our coffees. Well, we found out that 10 people died over a 3-year period producing that. So it was, again, very easy to say, send them a letter, please make some changes, and we're going to switch our companies. French fries, cheese, not to mention the ones that we did have to stay with per contractual agreements, Coca-Cola and Shamrock. But what the GFPP did for us was they opened up the transparency for us to see what exactly they're doing. And this is all good information from OSHA and governmental resources. So that was really easy for us to be able to accomplish. But with such a broad stroke, we took those hundreds of thousands of dollars away from those companies that are doing mistreating their valued workforce.
Great, thanks, Patrick. It's really amazing that you were able to really successfully pivot there to other suppliers. Okay, Catherine, from the supplier side, I'm really curious to hear a little bit more about this process of bringing on producers and farmers who are value aligned, and also a little bit more about how you're supporting those institutions in Jefferson County.
Yeah, so we've successfully made it through our first full harvest season, and from last summer when we started, have brought on just a whole host of additional producers, primarily produce farmers, but we have eggs and meat and all kinds of grains and beans and legumes. And the process for seeking those out really started with like, okay, who do we know? Who do we know and who do we trust? But that's only going to get us so far. So we've been developing a rubric of sort of our values, very much like a a mini internal GFPP for how we evaluate the producers that we work with a real focus on environmental stewardship, animal welfare, and dignified workforce. And so, we believe that is supporting that our producers that share our values, both really close to us in Denver and the Front Range, but also supporting those that are a little bit further out, maybe in neighboring states, and sort of connecting a regional food shed is really how we grow strong economies. And so, we work with a lot of farms directly. We also partner with additional food hubs and co-ops to sort of be able to lean on some of the trust that they've built with producers, and are constantly seeking out additional producers to work with. So, and as it relates to Jeffco, so one of our newer programs that we've really started launching in the last few months is around supporting institutions in Jeffco to go through the process of the baseline assessment for GFPP, which is it is a little bit of a lengthy process to, as I'm sure Patrick can attest to, really taking a deep dive into your procurement practices as they stand and figuring out where we can make change. And so we have some programmatic grant funding to support that, and to just in general support not just farmers in Jeffco, but specifically BIPOC farmers supporting Jeffco, whether they be within the county or in the region that would then produce the food that supports Jeffco. So really focusing on bringing in that fifth pillar that we see as really important of racial equity. And yeah, we've also been working so far, as Marion mentioned, Aramark has been moving towards or has been adopting GFPP. And so we're a source of procurement for local regeneratively grown pinto beans for jails in Jeffco and also in Denver, the city of Denver and county of Denver. So I'm happy to be working on that program as well.
Thanks, Catherine. I love hearing about all of the relationships with the suppliers and how you're building these also regional relationships. That's so interesting. So Marion, I know procurement really exists within this broader policy landscape, and can you tell us a little bit more about the policies like in Colorado and Denver that affect food procurement and what might still need to change?
Sure. So we've, I sort of look at the policy at a couple different levels. I just gave, a kind of an example of what happens at the institutional level and, where we can get policy into contracts. I look at that as policy. And so I'd also like to now just tell you about what's happening at the city of Denver. And in an additional question, I'll talk a little bit more about state policy. But I did want to give you an idea of what it takes to actually get policy through here at the city. And we've been working on an executive order that would require city agencies that provide public meal programs to adopt the GFPP. So there's no question about it. They have to be part of the program. And an executive order is really like a mayoral directive. The mayor is directing departments to do something. And the work on this actually started in 2017, 2018 with the Denver Sustainable Food Policy Council. And they had just been working on and developed a document called the Denver Food Vision. And as part of the Denver Food Vision, the council was looking at what different types of programs would help them achieve that. And the Good Food Purchasing Program aligned really well with what was in that Denver Food Vision. And so there was a group of people really very dedicated doing this all on volunteer time, including Damian Thompson, Fatima Ahmad, Suzanne McMillan with the ASPCA, Helen Silver, a number of different folks that spent a lot of time on this. And so they did the research, they called cities around the country to find out how it was implemented. And then they developed a mayoral advisory, basically asking the mayor to put through this executive order. So we originally thought that our first step in the policy process would happen in 2020. Needless to say, COVID really interfered with that whole policy process. So it was about a year and a half later when we were able to go in front of the Policy Review Committee. And the Policy Review Committee is made up of the executive directors of all of the departments within the city. And we presented the mayoral advisory to them requesting the executive order. And people were very enthusiastic about it, but they wanted us to contact all of the departments and agencies in the city to see whether or not this program would impact them. So I ended up talking to probably 20 different city agencies. And the really cool thing was that they were all very excited about this program. Even if it wasn't something that affected them directly, they were really enthusiastic about using a list of GFPP qualified vendors that we are in the process of developing. And so we got a lot of support for that. So the other piece I'll just mention is that we also were able to really put in some groundbreaking language around racial equity. And it's the first time that the city attorney's office actually approved the use of the term BIPOC, or Black, Indigenous, People of Color, within an executive order. So we were very excited about that. So right now, basically, we are this Thursday going in front of the Executive Order Committee. This is our last step in the process. And assuming all goes well there, we then just need to go through the formalities of having it signed by all of the different departments and agencies. So, so just to give you an idea, that's what we've been working on at a city level. And a big kudos to all of the Sustainable Food Policy Council folks that have been making this happen as well.
Great, that's so exciting. Thank you so much for sharing all that great news. So for our last question here, love for you all to give us just a little glimpse of your vision for values-based procurement. So if we turn to the future for a minute, what are you really excited about? And where do you see the momentum building? And do you have any specific goals that you're focused on moving forward? Start with Catherine.
We have so many exciting goals on the horizon. It's hard to know where to start, but I, in particular, relevant to this conversation, I'm really excited to continue deepening our relationship with the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. We've been a small but hopefully growing source of procurement for them, and would just really welcome the opportunity to keep working with them and all of the other institutions that continue to go through the baseline assessment to really kind of reassess what their priorities are. And, we've been really kind of focusing in the last year and a half on food access organizations. And, in a perfect world, we no longer have a need for charitable food. So while I want to continue supporting, the immediacy of food insecurity, the long-term goal is one that really supports communities, supports our farmers, supports our workforce, and our planet, which of course is growing more dire by the season. And so there's a vision out there where all communities have the means to thrive. And I've dedicated my career and my passion to making sure that food is a tool for good and not an extractive process in communities. So I think so excited to continue working with the partners here at this table. I know many of us have worked together in the past, and I think really helping to hold accountable the city with this Denver food vision, and institutions who talk about where they want to put their food dollars. I think that is one of the tools in our tool belt as a food hub. We're not, we're certainly setting ourselves apart from only being a distributor. We offer a wide suite of tools for technical assistance for folks who want to make change, both on the procurement side and on the production side. We want to offer resources to our community to engage in the food system in a way that's really beneficial for all of us. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and encourage anyone to reach out if you have any other questions for us.
Great, thank you. Patrick?
Okay, well, everything Catherine just said. But I think, when I approached composting and getting rid of plastic in the museum, it was the same thought process. Is if I can do this with the buying power that the museum has, perhaps it'll trickle down, if you will, but making it more available and more financially suitable for smaller environments, smaller institutions, even the mom and pop restaurant down the street. If they could be able to adopt these types of buying platforms, then it would be much better. In Catherine's words, they wouldn't need to have the free food for people, that sort of thing. So just expanding the program is one of my major goals, getting it out of the large institutions and into the hands of private sector, if you will. And one of the just lost my train of thought there. Healthy eating in the museum is very big thing for us. Before the start of the GFPP, we were in a small coalition of other cultural institutions that we said we're not going to serve 20-ounce drinks of soda. We are not going to serve high fatty, high salt meals to children. And so we adopted that years ago, and we're going to continue on that way as well. We have the ability to serve wholesome meals, very fresh, very healthy, as well as if you want pizza or a hot dog, we know that we are that facility as well. So we'll keep on doing our best to serve nutritionally sound food. Animal welfare is big for us. We buy all of our bison from Rock River Farms, and he's just a sole proprietor of just a great farm. Bison is much better for you than red meat. And at the same time, we have a meatless Monday. We're doing things that we would love to be able to show work to be able to get to these end goals, showing those smaller institutions and private sector individuals that this type of procurement works, and getting that message out there is just my big goal.
It's a great goal. All right, Marion.
Well, sort of to follow on what Patrick was saying, expansion of the program, I think is really key. Right now, we're working with 5 different agencies and institutions: the Sheriff's Department, Office of Children's Affairs internally, and then externally, the Museum, Center of Health, and Denver Public Schools. And altogether, that's about $27 million in food spend, which is, a pretty good amount to influence here. But if we could bring other institutions into the fold, so to speak, we would really be able to have a larger impact in terms of food dollars. Something that I'm really excited about that Catherine's talked about with the East Denver Food Hub is their collaboration with other food hubs, because I really see that as a way to answer some of the issues that institutions have. There would be greater product diversity, there's greater product volume. Hopefully there's the ability to deliver more frequently to institutions. There may be a decrease in price because of the volume. All of these are things that institutions really look at when they're purchasing, and the easier we can make it for them, the more I think they'll be able to purchase. So kudos to East Denver Food Hub. And then just to briefly touch on state policy as well, there is a Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council that is appointed by the governor and advises him on food issues. And there has been an institutional purchasing committee that's part of COFSAC. And they developed a very well-researched document on state policies across the country and how to incorporate or incentivize local purchasing for state agencies. And Colorado doesn't really have much at a state level to encourage local purchasing. So I really see this as an opportunity to pursue in the future. I think Wendy's going to put that link into the chat for you. So I really see values-based purchasing at a state level as a huge opportunity for Colorado. And then I would just lastly say that something that Patrick touched on a little bit is transparency in the food system. And Patrick has shared this statistic previously, so I think he's okay with me sharing it, which is that in the baseline assessment that the Center for Good Food Purchasing did, they were able to get to the source of where food was coming from only 25% of the time. And that is normal for agencies going through the baseline. So there is a lot of non-transparency going on in that supply chain and a lot of unknowns in terms of where our food's coming from. And if federal agencies could implement the Good Food Purchasing Program and insist on product source transparency, that would go a really long way to making that happen across the country with other institutions. So that's my big vision for transparency. And I'll stop there.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like there still is some work to do. So, well, thank you all. We're gonna move on to a few questions here. I think to start with, we had a question about local producers. Do any of you have a good resource for finding local producers to purchase from, especially like in a bulk situation?
I'm so sorry, it got really loud in the warehouse. Could you repeat that?
Oh yeah. So we had a question from someone who was looking to start purchasing for their preschool families locally. Do y'all have like resources for how to find those local producers to purchase from?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nourish has also been involved in this. There's a farm to ECE, early childcare education, I think that's what it is, program to support early childcare centers all over the state in getting access to local procurement. East Denver Food Hub is excited to be part of that, especially focused on the Front Range. So I would certainly love to be in touch with you if that's something you're looking for in the Front Range area. But there are, I think I saw some additional resources in the chat too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so here's one for Patrick. Have you had the opportunity to partner with any other businesses to help them expand their capacity around buying? Do you see any other museums in Metro Denver following suit?
To add on to the last question, I would say Loco Foods is a good vendor for local produced foods, and I don't think they have a minimum, so that would be really good to get out there. Get out with them. Prior to COVID, we had relationships with all the other institutions, but they are run by third parties, and they handled their staffing a little different than we did, and there was some turnover. So I need to rebuild those relationships. In the past, we have consulted with each other on, myself, the zoo, children's, the art museum. We've consulted on things that we do collectively, or we would like to do collectively, and it's worked out. So I look forward to rebuilding those relationships.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions? I think that was all the ones in the chat.
I think you covered it all, Julia. I think we're just going to take a minute here to pass the mic back to Chef Jess and Chef Taylor to announce the winner from this morning's cookie demo. Are you ready, Jess?
Yes, I am. We got a mute behind us. And want to show you our frittata is all finished as well. And we tried the vegan egg one too. So you can see there's our awesome little frittata. This is the vegan one using those vegan eggs. So it is possible. Our delicious frittata and our Johnny cake recipes. And the person who won the giveaway is Michelle Hopper. So Michelle on the line, thank you so much. You're going to get the ever so amazing Food Lab cookbook and a bench scraper coming your way. So thank you so much. And we're happy to have you all here today.
All right, great. Thank you so much and congratulations. It's very exciting. Okay, so real quick, I think Wendy is gonna throw another link into the chat. This is a tool that my team created as part of our work with the Center for Good Food Purchasing, was just finalized in the past couple of weeks. And we have, it's called a landscape assessment tool. It's got two components to it. There's a worksheet, which is basically a questionnaire. If you download it, it's a fillable PDF, so you can save it and save all your answers. And then there's a companion sheet that's got some additional information. There's further resources, and there's sort of next steps that you can take. And we really designed this tool because we heard that there was a need. Folks were kind of struggling with like how much information there was about procurement policies and laws. And we wanted to kind of try and put it all in one place for people to access. So it's designed for people working in institutions, as well as folks who want to do policy advocacy or generally just like want to learn more and get involved. So that's in the, should be in the chat for you, and let me know if you have any questions about that. And yeah, I just wanted to give a big thank you and round of applause to our speakers today. Thank you so much for all of your expertise and visions for the future. So thank you. All right, I think back to Wendy.
Thanks, Julia. Yep. And hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Peters Misgetty. I work at Nourish Colorado with Chef Jess and Chef Taylor, and with many others on the line. So I just wanted to throw out a few resources and reminders at the end here before we say goodbye, let you go on your merry way. So just a couple of ways to we can all stay in touch with each other and stay connected. In general, to learn more about our organization, which is Nourish Colorado, and the work that we do to support values-based procurement through several initiatives, through LoProCo, Local Procurement Colorado, through a variety of culinary training programs led by Chef Jess and Chef Taylor, and policy advocacy work that we do at the state and federal level. Please go to our website, nourishcolorado.org. It is Colorado Gives Day, so I do need to mention and remind everybody and make another plug again to support any of this work that we do. Please consider a donation of any amount to our Colorado Gives Day campaign. We're celebrating, and Amber's going to chat in that link again to take you straight to Colorado Gives Day page. And we're very serious when we say any amount is $5 or heck 500. We love it all. The point is about being in this together. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here today. A couple other things that I wanted to just flag for y'all. One thing, there are lots and lots of job opportunities and other, internship opportunities out there in the food system space right now in Colorado and around the country. So I just wanted to mention that we do, anytime we hear about an opportunity from anyone, any partner nationally or locally in the food system space, we put them up on our website. So Amber's going to chat in that link as well. We do have a careers and opportunities link on our website. So please, we update that weekly. So just as a resource, I want to flag for everybody, please go check it out, check it regularly. And if we are hiring, which we hopefully will be in this soon for a couple positions, we'll post there as well. Also, just to keep in touch with us, Amber's going to chat this link in as well. We do have a regular newsletter that we send out. You can join our mailing list. So Amber's going to chat in a direct link. If you don't receive our newsletter, you're not on our mailing list, please sign up for that. And then lastly, we just want to let you know that there will be a follow-up email. So the recording of this, a follow-up email with any resource, any link that was mentioned on this webinar will be coming to your inboxes tomorrow, whether you were here in person or you just registered. So follow-up coming tomorrow. And most importantly, thank you so much for being here first thing on a Tuesday morning with all of us. Many of you have been here since 8:30 this morning with us. We really appreciate your partnership. Really appreciate the discussion. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing your time with us and being with us today. And stay tuned for the next conversation. And other than that, we'll probably just stay on the line for the next couple of minutes to just wind things up. But Julia, Amber, anyone else, if I missed anything, please jump in. And otherwise, have a great day, everyone.
I think that's it. Thank you so much, Wendy.